Good afternoon. I hope all of you had good lunch, and I'm going to ask you some questions so that you can be awake, because I'm sleepy because I came at 3 a.m. today. So hopefully that will probably help both of us be awake. So with that being said, I'm going to take a little bit different approach than what you heard this morning. So it's important that plant breeders, I think I see a lot of pathologists, entomologists, and the breeders in the audience, not nutritionists. So it's important that we need to take this pepper global crop for a global health. So it is possible if we do understand the duty or the job of the breeders to understand some of these different phytochemicals. So I'm going to start asking the questions. How many of you believe the pepper has more than 100 bioactive compounds or health-promoting compounds? Only 2, okay. So, yeah, that's a good guess, but definitely there are more. I think you heard the previous speaker, Peter showed some of these more compounds earlier this morning. So definitely there, I'm just putting more than 100. Definitely there are about at least 300 compounds. So they are affordable, accessible, culturally embedded, because every part of the world need pepper. And it's important for us to bridge a gap between agriculture, nutrition, and wellness. So we all try to do breeding for the disease resistant and increase the yield to make the farmers happy. But farmers will be more happy if we add the value of a crop. So it's very important for us to understand that. With that, I'm going to take you a little bit small journey with, although thanks for Derek for inviting me for this, but he also, I thought I'll have 1 hour, but I'm going to condense it to 30 minutes. So there are a lot of market opportunities. I'm going to talk about some of these bioactive compounds and what are the health benefits. And then I'm going to take you to the safety part. So there is a big market from 2023 to 2033. There is about almost 1 more billion profit will be there. It's a global market. So I think we need to think about when you add the global market, it will go on increasing if you understand the consumer value. So what the consumer is sometimes confused is, do I consider that pepper is healthier? Are there so many compounds in pepper? Which one is good for you? There are people worrying about capsaicin. They're worried about the stomach ulcers and all those things, right? So we need to be, as a breeder, we need to be thinking and cognizant about that. So is it higher consumption will make me sick is another question. Some consumers, not big percentage, small consumers, at least the United States, not even Mexico or other countries, but United States, certain part of the consumers are concerned. How much pepper should I consume is another question if it is really high in capsaicins. And which color of the pepper is good for you, right? So those are the questions we need to think. So when I look at the PubMed publications, in the last 5 years, the health research is increasing. You can see that because we're understanding better for some of these health beneficial compounds. So let us discuss what makes the pepper healthy. We all know pepper is healthy. That's why I saw somebody who was next to me from New Mexico is eating the hot, spicy soup today, right? So that means spice is adding value to you. So definitely there are a lot of things. So the next 3 slides will tell you what I said, more than 100 compounds. I'm going to just quickly go through because of the time. You see that there are so many phenolic acids, flavonoids, capsaicinoids, and capsaicinoids, and you heard all of these. But how many of you heard there's a new compound called phthalate? I'm going to ask you the questions again. How many of you raise a hand? So there is a new category of compound just reported last few months ago. It is phthalate A, phthalate B, phthalate C, and D, which I'll explain in a minute. But also, other than those other compounds I mentioned about phenolics, there are carotenoids, volatiles, and other compounds, which again, I'm just showing you the list so that breeders can start thinking what is needed for you to increase the levels. And some of the terpenoids, alkaloids, and hydrocarbons. So when you look at the capsaicinoid, it's important for us to understand the difference between the capsaicinoids and capsaicinoids. I think some of you know already. One is a sweet and another hot. And recently in Japan, they released a variety CH19. It is rich in capsaicinoids. It's a sweet pepper or sweet compound we call. So it was identified in 1998. Then it was again identified, further reported, tried to separate those compounds in 1999. Then there are a lot of methods to separate both the pungent as well as sweet compounds. And it takes some time. But there is a lot of effort we did. And recently, there is one method here, for example, we can separate capsaicinoids and capsaicinoids, but again, it didn't separate all the capsaicinoids, the sweet ones. So recently, one of my graduate students separated this norhydrocapsaicate and capsaicate. Both are having a lot of health benefits. So we were able to separate these. Now we can separate all the 6 categories of capsaicinoids and capsaicinoids, both. So I'm not going to, because this is a chemistry a little bit, we basically change the column, mobile phase. I'm not going to bore you with all those chemistry details here in this audience. But basically, because of that separation, we're able to detect some of these genotypes or the hybrids or cultivars, for example, 509, 45-1, which has some of these norhydrocapsaicate, which is higher level, about 122, which we need to know earlier before that. So, of course, the processed tomatoes do not have these capsaicates. So then we also, another student separated this ascorbic acid as well as the other capsaicates earlier in the same run. So for the breeders, as long as if we can develop the methods to screen this quicker, that's always better for you. So that's what we do to analyze some of these compounds. So for example, here, one of the variety, because of that method and also because of some of the solvent extraction efficiency, we're able to report a particular variety called Ixatapa, which is higher levels of the capsaicin and dihydrocapsaicin, because we are able to use the hexane extraction in that. Different extracts can help in extracting completely better. Sometimes some of these values you see are, again, we are using the old method. Sometimes we need to be evolving different methods. So most of you probably know the Scoville units. So when you look at that Scoville units, of course, the Carolina pepper is the hottest one. But I'm trying to show you the new compound I mentioned, the phthalines. If you look at the capsaicinoids and the phthaline is about 200,000, it's small, it's still hot, but it's only one compound, which I'll show you that in a minute. For example, the difference between the capsaicate and the capsaicin is amide group. In capsaicinoids, that's the sweet ones, do not have an amide group. Even the phthaline has an amide group. But the pungency of the phthaline goes down immediately after you consume the pepper. And it's not hot, phthaline A only, not the C, B, C, D. So that's the uniqueness of this compound. It's another new compound. I think it has potential for breeders to enhance it so that we can get better benefits. We don't know anything about the compound yet. So again, 3 slides, again, 2 more slides will show you basically why both categories, both sweet and pungent compounds are good for you. Is basically they act on TRP1 receptor. One is loosely bind, it's a weak binding. That's why it is not really that beneficial. There are claims. But when you consider obesity, there are really similar benefits. So the TRP1 is which plays a bigger role in both capsaicinoids and capsaicinoids. And of course, we don't know about the phthaline. So if you look at the combined benefits, both shared benefits, both are acting on TRP. They are MK activation and reduced inflammation. So when you look at some of these varieties, for example, the Trinidad scarpin, you can see that capsaicin is very high. But what we're finding is earlier, about 5 years ago, we thought when you have the higher capsaicate, the capsaicinoids are lower. Now we're finding both are higher level in some, for example, here in this case, Trinidad, you can also see higher level. It's not lower. That's why Dr. Crosby and we're working on trying to breed a bell pepper with higher capsaicinoids. It's not easy because I thought it's a good market potential for the bell pepper industry. So again, you can see that capsaicate levels in Dr. Crosby's peppers, about capsaicate is about 90 ppm. And again, super hot pepper is about 1200 ppm of capsaicin here, again, not capsaicinoids. I'm sorry for my pronunciation of both of these two sweet and hot compounds. But again, this is another interspecific hybrid. You can see that Dr. Crosby developed, but it has, again, higher levels of capsaicin, low levels of almost nil of capsaicate. So now I'm going to touch about the capsaicinoids and capsaicides health benefits specifically. I use this triangle in any of my presentation just to understand what is this triangle means. So we have a lot of these epidemiological studies, a lot of the historical evidences that this compound is good for you, this vegetable is good for you, right? Until it reaches to the meta-analysis, we really are hard to say this is good for you because one day coffee is good for you, the next day coffee is bad for you, right? That's why we mix the consumers with the wrong message. It is good to take to the next top level ladder. Again, it's hard. Does that mean you have to stop eating pepper? No, you should eat continuously eating pepper. You don't have to wait for that. But for the scientists to really have the full evidences, you have to have this ladder. It's not just in vitro or cell culture studies or animal studies. You have to have a lot of randomized control human studies. Then you have to have meta-analysis. So I'm going to show you some evidences of the capsaicin, for example. Most of the capsaicin, you can see that, again, I'm not going to go into the details. You can see from almost colorectal cancer to the breast cancer to pancreatic cancer, most of these capsaicin is doing great job in reduction in that potential. So again, capsaicin, you can see when you add the folic acid, which is again another compound in only certain vegetables have it. So when you mix both of them together, you can see you can help in reducing lung cancer. There is a capsaicin with another drug, it's fluorosil. When you combine with that, another cancer is called cholangiocarcinoma. That's a bile duct cancer. It's a very rare cancer. You can reduce that also when you combine that drug with the capsaicin. So how is that these compounds impact on gut health? Because I think you probably heard about gut health recently. All these compounds are great in cancer, but if it doesn't show any effect on gut health, all the work we did for 20, 30 years, sometimes it's questionable. We did a lot of work on citrus, for example. We have about 120 papers on cell culture and animal studies. Unless some of these bioactive compounds show in gut health, we don't really trust nowadays anywhere. So we need to understand the gut health effect. So I'm going to show you an evidence, but how many of you believe that human cells are more than bacterial cells? Any thoughts? I'm going to ask you questions. Yes? The organizer knows about it. Okay, so the answer is yes, human cells are lesser than the bacterial cells. That's 38 trillion. This is a new report. There is people who are confused and it is combined. So, and also in our gut, we have a lot of bacteria, about 90 to 95% is in the gut. So we need to address how these bioactive compounds play a role in gut health. That's important for a lot of these diseases. So capsaicinoids, again, you can see that in the gut health, it improves its homeostasis, again, because of the alteration in gut. Also, it protects the chronic grade inflammation, and also it has an anti-obesity effect. And again, when you see that capsaicinoids, now I'm kind of changing it to sweet compounds, the capsaicinoids also have gut health benefits. As I said earlier, both have benefits. So people who are having some stomach ulcer issues, some of the other negative aspects, the capsaicinoids, they can go for the sweet peppers. So this is a good evidence. Across the 6 countries, they showed both capsaicinoids. The top one and the lower one is a sweet compound. The 3 middle ones are the capsaicinoids, which are, all of them are showing reduction in the body weight and reducing obesity. These are clinical evidences, not cell culture and in vivo studies. So there is a good evidence both compounds play a big role in human health aspects. So now I'm going to touch on fiber. How many of you know pepper is good in fiber? Oh, three or 4. I thought everybody will say yes. Okay. Anyway, so gut health, as I said, it is important. The fiber plays a bigger role. If the diet is without fiber, you can see on the left side, that's a with fiber. On the right side, the mucin layer is completely gone. So we used to eat a lot before we were like hunters and gatherers, a lot of fiber. Now because of the carbohydrate food, we are eating less fiber, right? So pepper is one of the source, as I asked you the question, it is good source compared to onion, and of course it's not definitely like ananas, like the one we grow in India a lot and even here, right? But compared to a lot of vegetables, the pepper is a good source of fiber too. So when you really compare one pepper it's giving about 45 grams of fiber. So as I said, originally we used to eat 50 grams. Because of our moderation life and quick fix life, we're eating only small amount of pepper. That's why we're getting obese, right? All the gut health issues are damaged. So on the right side, the diet without the fiber, you can see the mucin layer is completely gone. So again, dietary fiber helps in this particular, the short chain fatty acids. In turn, it helps in a lot of diseases, actually, hypertension, immunodeficiency, and inflammation and cancer. So I'm going to touch on other compounds. I think most of you work on capsaicin. Of course, some of you link to the disease, plant disease resistance, of course. But I'm going to touch on, like for a breeder, don't focus on only those capsaicin and capsaicinoids. There are more other compounds which you have a lot of potential to use it. I'm going to convince you, hopefully, that other compounds are good for health, so you can also focus on improving or enhancing some of those through breeding while you're doing disease and pest resistance. So this is an evidence. Each color has a bigger role in phenolic acids and major capsaicinoids, and again, capsaicinoids also. You can see that each color indicates a good relationship. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time in explaining this. And again, quercetin plays a role. A lot of peppers have the quercetin, and you can see that it's across all the colors, green, yellow, orange, and other red colors too. And also, when you compare the pulp, which is more in flavonoids in bell pepper, and when you compare the seed, it is more in phenolics. So it's a big comparison, and that's why it is resistant to some of the pests and diseases. The phenolics plays a role in resistant to defense mechanism. So again, quercetin plays a role in across the different colors. You can see that the heat map studies are showing very clearly. And again, when you look at the quercetin level of polyphenols in general, again, when we use a different extraction method, we can see that higher levels in one of the variety called Tuxelas. Again, you see here the epigenin is very low. The challenge to the breeder is if you can enhance the epigenin through breeding, that will be great. It is compared to the other luteolin and quercetin and camphorol, epigenin is low in pepper, but it is still there. That means there is an opportunity. So again, here you can see that flavonoid content in some of the Dr. Crosby's lines. We have also several hybrids we screened, and one particularly the 221 TAM is Texas A&M variety. 227 has good amount of vitamin C, total phenolics, and zero pungency. In our center, we work with the breeders. Any pepper who releases, we check on the phytochemicals, all the phytochemicals in our center. That's my job, and the breeder's job is to provide the samples. So, and we also identified new luteolins in pepper in some of these hybrids I just listed. And one of the flavonoid is quercetin that's very high in some of the two varieties, that particularly the 227, the last one. So again, we also, based on some of the methodology, we identified myristin, which is always there. It was reported one time. It is in bird chili. We identified in paprika pepper is about almost 11 micrograms per gram. It has very good benefits in ovarian cancer. So how many of you heard about myristin in pepper? Nil, right? So that's why I thought it's important for you to understand the role of some of these compounds. So again, luteolin has a lot of benefits, just like other compounds. Again, I'm going to skip because the boss is going to kick me out in a few minutes. So you can see that it has benefits in breast cancer and lung cancer. A lot of references, you can see that later. And again, the quercetin level compared to any other fruit or vegetable source, chili pepper is very high. Quercetin, that's one of the good flavonol, not even among the flavonoids, it's one of the flavonol. So again, a lot of cancer benefits here, from almost gastric cancer to cervical cancer. There are a lot of benefits, particularly the apoptosis is really increased. That means you are basically killing the cancer cells. And again, this is a meta-analysis, about 34% reduction in if you take a high quercetin level, basically when you take the pepper, compared to total flavonoid is about 19%. This is meta-analysis out of several studies. Out of 20,000 studies, they select about 8 to 10 studies, meta-analysis mean. So clinical significance of again, you can see that about 1.03 reduction in fast blood glucose level, and the systolic blood pressure reduction is there also based on the meta-analysis, about 1.96. And again, you can see that myristin level, again, 2.6 triglycerides, and all the bad cholesterol, total cholesterol is reduced, the bad cholesterol, LDL is reduced, not significantly, certain level by taking the myristin, is one of the compound in pepper. So again, epigenin, as I mentioned, there are a lot of multiple benefits of epigenin. We did some work in animal studies. I think for a man with a colon cancer is noticed after 20 years, sometimes if it started. So it basically starts with the DNA damage to the tumor formation. When you get this aberrant crypt, the red dots, then you are really diagnosing the colon cancer. It's hard to repair sometimes or fix it, right? So what we showed is in animal studies, the epigenin, of course, naringenin, nobility, other flavonoids, you can see that about 57% reduction in animal studies. Again, I'm cautioning it here. It's not in humans yet. So in animal studies, we were able to demonstrate this epigenin can reduce significantly. That's why I said if you have a potential to enhance the epigenin in breeding, that will be a good tool to use it. And again, epigenin, just like other compounds, it has definitely a lot of cancer benefits. So now epigenin plays a different gut role. I think you can see the overall health of the gut. And again, there is a diversity of the gut bacteria. And the firmicute and the bacteriotide ratio is lower by taking the epigenin. So now if you take the antimicrobial activity of some of these flavonoids, so if you look at the good bacteria as a resistant, that's a good news, lactobacillus and bifidum. The bad bacteria is inhibited by some of these compounds. So if you're eating pepper, I'm just giving an analogy, you are really killing some of these foodborne pathogens. That may be the reason in India and some of the developing countries, they don't see the foodborne issues more compared to the Western world. I'm just throwing it, not really scientific evidence, but just to give an idea. So again, synergistic effect of quercetin and capaic acid is one of the compound. You can see there's a best synergy. There's a good interaction between quercetin and camphorol. These are all synergistic in pepper. So the synergistic plays a bigger role. You can see that when you take all the compounds when you're breeding, not just only the hard compounds, it is good to breed those combined levels rather than just focusing on one compound. So again, there's a lot of news articles, synergy is better, again, always, of course. So now toxic levels, right? So it is important to understand the levels of the toxicity. Good news about the capsaicinoids. The sweet ones are so far there's no toxic levels. But the pungent ones, there are certain reports. There is a level, the lowest observed level and the no observed adverse effect levels are there listed in this one. You can see that. So there is a question mark about the capsaicins consumption if you go to beyond the certain level. And again, as I said, if you're taking about 2 to 3 peppers, you can see that's okay. But if you take about 70 kilograms, about 160, 170 pounds, they are taking that much. That's not higher level so far in terms of the capsaicin. But if you take the polyphenols, so far there's no risk involved if you increase even the upper limit is about almost 100 levels and I think 1,000 micrograms per ml. But the quercetin level so far we're taking only 5 to 40 milligrams. So there is a lot of opportunity for the breeders to enhance some of these compounds. So food for thought for the breeders. You guys work as a university breeders. We work on trade-based. And again, I see a lot of companies working on other breeding system, corporate-based breeding. My suggestion is you have to use a systems-wide approach rather than just one approach. You should really think about the holistic approach so you can really breed better. So the conclusion of this particular presentation is there is an opportunity for the breeders using metabolites. That's why I asked the question to one of the speaker from Japan. So there is a genetics, environment plays a role, function and health relevance follows dose-dependent relationship is important, requiring optimization rather than increasing certain compounds. And a meaningful progress requires all the types of expertise, breeding to until human health and nutrition, entomology and pathology. Linking metabolite profiles is a mechanistic function to move from a descriptive chemistry to predictive and health relevant outcomes. So consumer health is important for anything when you are breeding rather than just increasing the yield. That's very important. So with that, USDA released a food guide pyramid. The good news is whatever the things you hear in US, there is some good news at least is the vegetables are put in the top now, not bottom. So that's a good news for people who are working on vegetables. And I'm going to show you that when I say system-wide approach, we have some good evidences we do in our center. We just got last year about 8.4 million on just developing resilient tomatoes, basically climate-resistant tomatoes. And again, it has about 6 plant breeders, about 7 molecular scientists from 10 universities involved in it. So several seed companies are also involved in this project. This is again 10 states covered. This is the overall idea, but sustainability, food security, all the things involved to develop a water use efficiency and drought-resistant tomatoes. So we just finished a $4.4 million project on system-wide approach again, with again different scientists, including the food safety scientists. And we had different companies involved in this, and we have a growers advisory board across the country. Again, I don't have the result to show because of the time. I see that. So this is our center scientist working on different aspects of the human health, sports medicine to cancer research to breeding to plant physiology and nutrition. So we also bring in scientists and industry back to the Texas A&M College Station to discuss the issues. So again, this is a list of my graduate students, graduated over the years, master students, postdocs, and other scientists worked on that. So this is the one I wanted to show you. Dr. Crosby developed a mild habanero, which is about 760 vitamin C compared to the other one is 20. I didn't talk about beta-carotene. So, but just to give you an idea, there is an opportunity for breeding a lot of vegetables with different phytochemicals or bioactive compounds. With that, before the organizers kick me out, thank you very much.